Let's update AstraZeneca and see if we can value it and trade it if we think there's something there. It's the biggest drug company listed in, I want to say, all of Europe. But, you know, one of the biggest drug companies in the world anyway. You look at it. Announced their quarterly earnings about a month ago. Let's download that. Flip through this a little bit. Most important thing to me when I look at a drug stock is just all of the individual drugs revenues. So Tagrizo, 1864, still growing unbelievably, even though it's kind of an older drug now. Imfinzi, this is their Keytruda Me Too. Quite impressive, 1.6, you know, up to almost 6 billion now. A little over 6 billion now annually, which is, you know, a huge number. Calquence kind of winning the BTK wars, sort of. Lynparza, also strong, surprisingly. And Enhertu, this is weird because they don't book all the Enhertu revenue, but Enhertu is, you know, a bit of a huge success for them on the ADC side. ADC, antibody drug conjugate, for anybody who doesn't play along at home. TrueCap, this is kind of a interesting drug. It wasn't cap after all. It was real. Imjudo, I always hated these types of CTLA drugs for cancer. They don't really work. Datraway, is that one of the new genetic medicines for them? Maybe. Datraway, no, that's Datopotamab, that's a Trop-2 ADC. So really strong oncology franchise at AstraZeneca. One of the best CEOs also in pharma at AstraZeneca. Okay, Farxiga. Farxiga still hasn't gone generic, but it's coming very soon, so it's more or less on its way out. Crestor, the old statin, is still around. Brilinta, this is a blood thinner, old blood thinner, but Brilinta's doing all right. No, Brilinta went generic in the US, so down a lot. Yeah, older drug. Makes sense. Fazenra, this is a little engine that could, now up to 2 billion. Little IL-5 mab, is that right? Yeah, for asthma. I want to say it's sub-Q because I've tried it, I think. Let me keep going down this list. Lokelma, this is like a very kind of bizarre drug, but it's done well. And they got it through an acquisition, if I'm not mistaken. Was this where'd they get this thing from? Where'd Lokelma come from? This is an old acquisition, right? Yeah, ZS. I don't remember that ZS acquisition too well, but 2015 was a pretty busy year for me. I think we were surprised by it. It was sort of a pretty rich price. But it looks like, turns out it was a good deal. Silicon is an old anti-hypertensive. Roxadustat is a very storied drug. It's the old Fibrogen drug. Wainua. This is a genetic medicine drug. What's this thing for again? This is for This is for ATTR peripheral neuropathy. This is, I don't know why this drug's gonna. I mean, it's growing. I don't know what they're using it for, but AstraZeneca used to be. We used to call it Lastrazeneca, but now with Pascal we call it FastraZeneca. Cool, right? All right, Symbicort, old inhaler. See, these inhalers never go generic because you have to do this like pretty complicated bioequivalence. So Symbicort's selling, 3 billion a year. It's old as shit. Costs like 10 cents to make, but you can't make it the generic because the spray, there's no bioequivalence test to do. You have to do a spray test. And the FDA is just like, yeah, do a full clinical trial. And the generic companies are like, huh? What's that? What? I've never done one of those. It's just some Chinese guy like, huh? What? In some dirt floor factory in India or something. You expect us to do what? Make sure the drug works? Fuck out of here. What? Nah, we don't do that over here. All right, Breztri. Breztri is just another like attempt to do these combinations, kind of like the GSK portfolio. It's budesonide, formoterol, and glycopyrrolate. These are really old, kind of historic drugs in some ways, but like every year somebody just makes a new combination, brands it as a new asthma drug, and everything's fine. Tezspire a little more, optimistic and innovative. Tezspire's, a deal with Amgen, I believe, so that's sort of like not going too quickly, but Pulmicort. I think Pulmicort actually did go generic. Some of these sprays are easier to make generics than others. It's sort of a dark art. Nobody really knows how it actually works. Air Supra, again, one of these kind of like, it's just a weird cottage industry of like, yeah, this one's albuterol and budesonide. So albuterol, the LABA, budesonide, the steroid. And, you just keep mixing and matching all these and call them new drugs and you could do all right. Doctor, gets a visit. Cute sales rep explains why they should try this new drug. Doctor's like, I love you. The sales rep is like, ha ha ha, that's nice. Anyway, how many patients do you think you could put on this drug, man? Oh, all of them. I love you so much. Okay, thanks, Dr. Smith. Gotta go. See you next month. That's basically what that looks like. Beyfortus is the new RSV mAb for little babies, actually. I think, I want to say Little Torque got one. You get them a little shot to protect against RSV because mom's antibodies are no longer there and they can't make antibodies themselves. So there's a little period where you want to give them RSV shot, and it's especially important for premature babies, I believe, but it's been a while since I looked at this. The fuck? What? Anyways, let's see. What else are we looking at here? Tezspire, Pulmicort, Cefalno, Supra, Beyfortus, Synagis. Synagis was the old version. It was funny. This was one of the main drugs in biotech. Synagis was one of the first. If you don't know Synagis, it's an old school. MedImmune was the maker of Synagis. Let's see, Flumist. Flumist was also old school biotech. This is a nasal flu vaccine. and it was sort of a dud, but AstraZeneca still makes it. I added the old Alexion drugs too, one of my old favorite biotechs. Now long since been purchased by Astra. They've done a switch from Ultomiris to Ultomiris from Soliris. Probably some biosimilars have nibbled at Soliris as well. Koselugo 224. Wow, nobody thought this drug would ever be anything. Is that, how did it, is this the old? No. Okay, this isn't the one I was thinking of. Koselugo is selumetinib. I was thinking of the old drug from who's that rare disease company that Trimeris reverse merged into, and AstraZeneca, not as AstraZeneca, Alexion bought. Synagiva. Does anybody remember Synagiva? That was a crazy story. Baker Brothers were in Trimeris. The reverse merger created Synagiva. Trimeris was sort of dead. I actually wanted to buy Trimeris' drug. It's this crazy HIV drug called Fusion. If you don't know the Fusion story, that was pretty wild as well. Anyway, Trimeris reverse merged. Synagiva took over. Synagiva, I think, was called Aviragen, and is Synagiva backwards. So Synagiva, A-V-E-G, Avig, Syn, N-Y-S. Am I doing this right? Synagiva, A-V-E-G-A-N-Y-S. Avagenus? Avagenus? Maybe I get it wrong. Jiva name origin. I thought it was the bat. I thought they. Let's see. Synagiva name. Well, let me try this. Synagiva Trimeris merger. Synagiva original name. Avigenics. Okay, it was close. Sort of backwards. Avigenics. So it went from Avigenics to Synagiva, merging with Trimeris, but growing up to 8 billion and selling to AstraZeneca, Alexion for 8.4 billion, which was crazy. And the drug Kanuma that they got never did very well. So Kanuma, maybe, let's see here. Kanuma got to, I think they stopped reporting Kanuma revenue, but it looks like it was about 200 million. So they paid 8 billion for 200 mil. Rough stuff, right? How many years? Did that take 40 years to get your money back? If it was pure profit, which it's of course not. Bad deal. Who did that deal? Oh yeah. I know who. Shkreli knows. Don't worry. I'm not going to name names. But you wasted $8 billion, homie. That's a bad trade. Some of you got upset over losing 50 grand. Imagine paying $8 billion for 200 in revenue. That's what, a $6 billion plus loss, not including time value of money. Pathetic. You don't have to be an expert analyst to see that problem. That was pretty obvious. All right, let's look at this. As usual, my numbers don't add up. I'm missing 64 million somewhere. I found it. Other rare disease. There it is. 64. Oh, that's literally where they stopped reporting it here in this line, and now it goes into this line. That's probably the only drug in this line anymore. And Dexa was the other drug Lexion got for Portola, if you remember that deal. So I love deal making. I'm like Trump. I love deals. I love them. I do lots of deals. We're going to make a deal. It's going to be a great deal. The only loser is going to be
China.
China. Okay. So basically, the drug, as many of you guys have seen me stream many times, the basic point of the drug industry, or like looking at drugs, is you just basically go through each drug one by one. And a company like AstraZeneca, let's count how many drugs it is. It looks like there's maybe 30 lines that make up the company, and probably 10 of them really matter. So you just have to forecast 36 different revenue lines, and basically that's it. The costs of most drug companies are more or less the same. There isn't a whole lot changing on that side. So you just have to have this like big memory for every drug. My memory used to be better. But you know, I'm not really in the drug business anymore. So Gefurulimab. What is this? Is this a next gen? Ooh, I like this. That's a dual binding. That's dual binder? Was it single binder? Oh, you going to dual, John? Go to the dual one? Double acting? Dual binding nanobody. Okay, and it binds albumin. Okay. So it's albumin. Extreme half-life drug. This is for PNH, or what is this for? Oh, myasthenia gravis. Okay. What was the code name for this thing? This kind of snuck up on me. Oh, I kind of remember they had this. Alexion 1720. All right, well, that's a new one. It's going to be pretty good for life cycle management for them. This could be a big one. Gefurulimab. Now, obviously they have a C5 franchise. They have the C5 franchise with Soliris, right? Which has basically been deprecated. It's an old patent, off patent. And then Ultomiris, which is, 5 billion. But I guess Ultomiris is not brand new. It's getting old. Well, it's not old. 5 years old. Well, they bought Alexion, so when did Ultomiris get approval? Should have that here. 2018. All right, so Ultomiris is 7 years old. Probably want to start life cycle management. That's fair. And Ultomiris, I think, has a label for MG. So the question is, why would you take this drug? And maybe it's because of administration. Let's see here. So you want sub-Q. Okay, so they have a big label here. PNH, myasthenia gravis, aHUS, and neuromyelitis. Optica spectrum disorder, NMOSD, or sometimes just called NMO. I think there's actually a royalty on this that goes to somebody, one of these small public companies that has a royalty saying, let's look at the patent or the patient information at least. Let's see. Well, no, medication guide, actually. I almost never look at these, but I don't think they have any. There's a REMS program. I guess the meningococcus is the big problem there. And I don't know how they avoid that with the new drug. You still need this, like, yeah, so you can die from meningococcus because, implementing your complement system, inhibiting your complement system, which is the third part of the immune system. So if you guys don't know, you have do you guys know? There were sort of two parts. I'll give you a hint. Immune was working on one of them. So it's the innate immune system. Let's see if you guys know this stuff. See how smart my audience is. You got the innate. Anybody else? You got the there's a few ways to look at it. No. Yeah, the IFRX is in this space too. Adaptive, innate, and complement. That's probably a good way to look at it. Oh, I'm just banning anybody that has the wrong answer. Sorry. Sucks for you. I love banning people. I mean, that's it. You should ask ChatGPT. Ask Gemini. Is there AI mode? Here it is, AI mode. What are the types of immune systems? Give single words. What are the types? What are the components of the immune system? Give single words. No, I want 2 or 3 words max. No, I want your response to be 2 or 3 words. Stop giving me more than 2 or 3 words. Organ cells, molecules. Those are the divisions of the human immune system? Try again. Adaptive, innate and adaptive. Is the complement system an innate immunity or adaptive? Give one sentence only. the complement system is involved in both innate and adaptive immunity, effectively acting as a functional bridge between the two. Did you guys know this? You got Robinhood, you got to leave. This isn't the place for Robinhood. You got to go get a real broker. Get out of here. You're in the wrong place, kid. You're lost. E-Trade fucking sucks too. Sad and ashamed. Feel ashamed. Schwab is not really there now. You got your own broker dealer, tier 728. So I don't think you can give Ultomiris IV or sub-Q. Oh, they did have one at one point. Yeah, I think it's intravenous only. Looks like somebody's doing it sub-Q. Where's the old drugs at FDA? There it is. Yeah, it doesn't look like they ever got. Yeah, I don't think they ever got sub-Q in the US at least. So this will be pretty exciting new drug. Gefurulimab. Gefurulimab. These names, man. Okay, so I'm going to put something in the model here. I don't know how much Ultomiris right now is for. I don't know how much of it is MG. And MG is somewhat competitive. I think somebody was saying this in the chat earlier, right? Who was talking about that earlier? One of you guys, pretty smart. Very crowded space. Right, Beyfortus is split with Sanofi. Yeah, there's a system to making up the drug names. Yeah, MicroStrategy was never going to be bullish for Bitcoin. Just accelerate the up and accelerate the down. All right, so I'll pencil in some revenue. I think they can find a way to split the baby here and get some revenue out of GMG. Pencil in a little 500 mil. That won't hurt anybody. And I have to add a sheet here for Jaforolamab. Yeah, the generic names have a system. The brand names are just, there's one company that does it all for the brand names. It's kind of funny. And they're really simple. They all kind of sound the same. Sometimes you get a unique name, but in general, they all kind of sound the same. Somebody knew the resize a cell. That's the one Excel macro or one Excel shortcut that I need to learn. Size a cell to the text width, if anybody knows that one. That's an elite one. The phase 3 Prevail trial. Yeah, it looks like a pretty good drug. Alt HOI, is that it? Abraxane. That's an old school one. That's so awesome. HOI. I'll try to remember that one. Gotta love sustainability highlights, man. Only sustainability I care about is cash flow. Sustainability. Fuck the Earth. I don't give a fuck about no Earth. Earth? Bitch. We can talk about Earth. Pazder out at FDA since when? That'd be very concerning. That's Elon's favorite word. Concerning. Everything he says is just a variation of concerning. Highly concerning. Not concerning. Concerning. Somewhat concerning. He's like if Star Trek came to real life. All right. Well, Pastor's out. That means... Wait, does that mean Replimune's getting approved? See, this is where Godel kind of shines. I could do NI Pasder. I don't see anything yet. Oh, wait, I should probably clear all these filters. Reset the default. And iPasder. Oh, still not out on the wires. Probably will be. Vinay Prasad pushing his ass out. Oh, he's retiring. Okay. That's not, big deal. He'll be working at Pfizer soon. Or AstraZeneca, for that matter. I like AstraZeneca. He was pretty friendly to drug companies, but this allows Replimune to get approved. Oh, INQ's dropped. The world has turned and left me here. It's where I was before you appeared. Net debt 23,965. That's in US dollars. I love AstraZeneca reporting in USD instead of pounds. That's kind of based. I talked for hours to your one on the ground. GBP, pounds $1.31 versus the dollar. So this is 13,780. That's in pence. This times this divided by 100 to get back to pounds. Multiply by 1 million to get back. And there's the AstraZeneca USD market cap. Should be 283 billion. Let's actually see what it says on the ADR. Yeah, 280. So that's about right. 283, 284. Let's get the debt in there as well. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's 300 billion enterprise value, which puts it, very, very one of the largest companies in the world by far. Top company. As big as UNH. Let's put in some earnings. 693, 21, 477, 65. See if this backfires. It backfired. Let's see this. Dun, dun, dun. Ah, we're in dollars. Okay. So AstraZeneca's 19 times. 19 times 2026. We'll do some more forecasts in a second. See how we feel about that given the earnings growth. The street, of course, always forecasting some crazy ass growth. I think Pascal said his ambition was to get to 80 billion in revenue. I think if I was not mistaken. So about 5 times sales, revenue growth. The street's forecasting 5 or 6% revenue growth. Not that heroic. I think he said, let's see, it's in the model somewhere here. 2030, he wants 80 billion. That's his ambition. Street's at 77. I'm at 54, of course. Not including any new drugs yet, really. So we'll have to see what the pipeline will bring. But at least with the current portfolio, that's kind of what you'd get. I have put in some numbers here for other drugs. Not too much, though. Obviously, if they hit 80, it's very cheap.
That drug pharmacy dude, Martin.
And one of the ways you can think about this,
Shkreli.
I mean, this is basic finance, but this might help you. One of the ways you can think about this, and I hope somebody clips this because I'll teach you some basics here. AstraZeneca is going to make 918, 1014, 1115, or 1150, 1268, 1406, and let me get the 2030 number. 1526. Okay. Let's assume this is true. This is like the finance I taught dudes in jail. Let's assume this is true. Okay. These are the years you're running a business. Doesn't matter what you're making, pills, software, widgets, doesn't matter. But this is the earnings that we're going to see. This is pretty good. 10%, 14, 10, 11, 9. So after what, 5-6 years, you're getting 66% growth in earnings from 2025. So that's a pretty robust growing business. Okay. We know that the street likes to pay 20 times the earnings. Why do they pay that? Well, that's a different lesson. But they like to pay 20 times earnings. Okay. So what's the stock price now? Well, let's check. $90.61. Now, an ADR of AstraZeneca is worth two per share, for what it's worth, and they have a little net debt, but they pay 20 times earnings for the local share, and the ADR is 2x. You get half a share, so you have to cut it in half. Anyway, so basically, for the ADR, it's all 20 times earnings. So right now it's $90, but if the earnings are going to grow like this, why won't people pay 152.60 right now? For these earnings, 20 times earnings. Well, in 2030, they're going to pay, if this comes true, which we're going to assume, they're paying 153 They're going to pay 153 in 2030. How does that help you now? What does that mean? How do you think about that? Right? Imagine you close your eyes, you Ripple and Van Winkle, you wake up, and in 2030, the earnings per share is $15. You went to sleep when it was $9. Now the earnings per share is 2030 and it's $15. And the stock is trading for 153. That listing doesn't matter. There's a few ways to look at this. Well, you say if I hold from then to now, I will generate an 11% return. That's one way to look at it. And you say, is that good? Is that bad? Well, what's the risk-free return? Well, that's just the 10-year yield, right? What's the 10-year yield? Anybody know off the top of your head? It's like 4.1%. Let's just assume it's 20 times earnings. That's what the market's paying now. They may pay less in the future. They pay more in the future. Not our concern. So this is the risk-free rate. This is our return. How about the AAA bonds? What are those yielding? Anybody know? AAA is 5.3. There you go. Meme knows. How do you know, Meme? How about BBB or B? You need to also adjust for
that drug pharmacy dude, Martin. What's his
you
name?
make sure it's the right duration. So that's 6%. And how about some junk? I mean, is that junk? I think that's junk, right? Sounds like junk is more like 7. Okay. And what have equities kind of returned over the last 10 years? Should we do that one? Or maybe let's do a couple of them. How about that? So let's see, 5-year return on equities. Let's take today's price. And then, I don't know, let's take, that's 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 37.60, 2 minus 1. So this was an 82% return over 5 years, but we have to do rate. 5 years minus this, that, so that's 13%. So if we keep going as we've gone for the last 5 years, that's actually not a great return, the 11% return. We could do better if we just bought a generic stock, but is that the best way to look at it? Well, let's see. 2134, if we do the same math, that's over 10 years. The return's going to drop a little bit to 12%. It's been a really good decade for stocks, my man. Let's go to 15 years. Yeah, market's very overvalued. Still 12%. And let's go to 20 years. Let's get to, this is what starts to make it a little ugly. %9. Now that 11% doesn't look so bad. And it's a pharma company, so it's probably a little safer than your average stock, right? But let's keep going. Why not? This is fun, right? $2,000 was 1552.87. Uh-oh. That sounds not so good. 25-year return on stocks. How are we treating dividends here? Does it matter? It does matter, of course. 6%. 6.1%. So versus 6.1%, that sounds great. And we're not done with this lesson. It's going to be very interesting, but let's do a couple more years. Interesting here, if you go back to 1995, market's gone up 10x since then, but it also has been 30 years. That's 8.3%. So I'm going to do 2030. And this is 5, 10, 15. And then let's do, should we do one more? This is 35 years. The market's almost gone up 20 some odd percent. And again, this doesn't mean that the future market's going to do this, right? Why is the US so special? Well, you know, we've had a great run. But is it going to be like this forever? Well, it depends on how many Lena Khans and AOCs we get. We get more Lena Khans, AOCs, and Elizabeth Warrens. They don't give a fuck about the stock market. They want that shit to go down. So over 40 years, that's done great. But this is meaningless. This shit I'm doing right here, it's worthless. It's garbage. Who cares? Why? Why does it matter? Well, let's do this. Let's look at the Nikkei. Nikkei, please. As my friends say. Okay. The Nikkei is the Japanese stock market, and it's right now at 49,000. But now let's look at that in the same framework, and you might be a little more concerning. Very concerning. This. I should probably do it like this. That's all you can say is Nikkei, please. The Nikkei is the Japanese stock market. Okay. So these are the returns. So Japanese stocks, so US stocks are anywhere from 6.1, 6 to 13%. Let's write that down. US stocks. That sounds pretty good. It's like, I'll take my chances, you know. Any old stock, I don't need to look at AstraZeneca, who cares? Any old stock would do the trick, but hold on, what if we were like Japan? And remember, keep this in mind, Japan sort of was like the number 2 economy. So that's like, it's not like, okay, maybe what happens if we're, not number 1? It'll be very interesting to see how this works. So literally 1% return was possible over 35 years. Japanese stocks returned 1%. 35 years. 1% to today. Can you imagine? That's worse than Stanfield Capital. So don't assume the market's going to help you. We have to be vigilant. But we've had as much as a 12% return over the last 5 years. So you get some pockets of strength that look good and some that don't. Now, what if we did, a country like France? What do you think? How do we do in France? Should we pick something else? Let's try France. They have a stock market, or index is called CAC there. I know a lot of you guys like CAC. How does that pronounce? CAC? Some of you really like it. All right, let's do the math for that. Who gives a cack? So here you had 1 to 6%. I'm going to make a tweet about this. It's going to be fun. Kind of moving the data to kind of make it tell my story the way I want it to, but it kind of doesn't matter that much. I should have done Chinese stocks too. Anyway, point is, these are some returns you can expect. So 11% sounds pretty good. Now you're making a few assumptions. One, the market will pay 20 times earnings in 2030. So could you make another assumption? Is there another way to look at this? I think there is. One of the ways you could look at it is say, what's the present value? Well, if you say my cost of capital is this risk-free rate, and we'll explain why in a second, but let's say it is. My cost of capital is this risk-free rate. It's 5 years from now, and I'm going to have $152 in 5 years. What's that worth today? Well, that's worth $124 today, and that's a 36% upside. So the market's missing something that potentially could be worth that much. But your risk-free rate and the risk-free rate the market's using are different. The market might say, well, this isn't as safe as a bond. It's a company, right? Is it as safe as a AAA bond? Well, in that case, the upside's less. Well, is it as safe as a BAA bond? Well, the upside's even less then. And is it as safe as a junk bond or a portfolio of junk bonds? Well, if you value it compared to junk bonds, which are almost equity-like, I mean, you don't get much security in a junk bond, it's still kind of cheap. But if you start to look at it as, well, what's my upside if that rate is more like a stock rate? You know, I assume we're going to make 8%, which again seems like a faulty assumption. Markets have gone up kind of 8 or 9% a year, but they're not guaranteeing to go up 8 or 9% a year. So this, to some extent, is guaranteeing you an 11% return. Again, what if multiples go down? Well, then you're really cooked, because if multiples go down, let's say even to 18%, 18 times. Well, now, even if they do this 66% increase in earnings, that means they're making 66% more 5 years from now than they're making today. That's a lot. If you told me your business is going to grow by 60, 70% over 5 years, almost doubling the size of your already huge business, is already one of the biggest businesses in the world. But the market says, instead of paying 20 times their earnings, I'll pay 18 times the earnings. Not much of a change. Multiples go, the standard deviation of multiples, very high. Now, it could also be higher, arguably, but you know, all that has to change is little, maybe not even one standard deviation change in multiple. And now you have only a negative 3% compounded return over 5 years. Now, the returns may start again, but what if AstraZeneca goes into a lull, right? What if the earnings actually start to drop? Thank you. And, you know, the CEO retires, and it turns out that, you know, the earnings don't go up 10 or 11% every year again. They only go up 1% a year. And the market says, well, I'll still pay 18 times, but with such a low earnings increase, you know, in 2035, just 10 years away, again, we're still going to hold it at 9% discount rate, you'd make far more money not buying the stock, even though all things considered, I mean, this is not a bad growth trajectory. 10%, 14%, 10%, 11, 9, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. This is kind of the slow period where maybe they fire their CEO or whatever. But earnings are still growing. They're never declining, which is, you know, not a bad achievement. Even with that slow period, you're still growing. But if you could get a 9% return somewhere else with the same amount of risk, you actually would have lost money on a comparative basis. Now, of course, your share price is still going to go up. It's just going to go up somewhat anemically. What's my rate of return that way? Well, you just do equals rate, 10 years, minus this, positive that, and I see a 5% rate of return. Well, we look at our little handy sheet here, and we see that's equivalent to buying AAA bonds. Well, AAA bonds are going to give you that payment. Those are bonds of the highest tier corporate companies, or corporations like Apple and so forth, and AstraZeneca. You know, and you won't have any risk. You are the senior bondholder to those companies. If those companies do well, it doesn't matter. If those companies do poorly, it doesn't matter. They're going to pay you one way or another. And if they don't, well, you get to own the whole company. So you don't want that. But, you know, AAAs have never defaulted, really. So, you know, you could basically sleep at night, never even think about stock prices, whereas the stock price of AstraZeneca is going to gyrate quite a bit. These bonds are so secure, so much more safe. You know, why would you buy this when you're better off just buying AAA bonds. And I think that every time you think about the market, you should think about this kind of stuff. Now, this is macro stuff, but at the same time, it's still important to think about what am I buying when I'm buying AstraZeneca? I'm buying a very good CEO, who's probably not going to live forever. I know that. As good as he is, he's not going to live forever. Somebody who takes over may suck. That new person that takes over, and this is why management is so important to so many investors. Management takes over, they're bad, and this is like not even bad. This is kind of more of it's sort of bad. It's more mediocre. Let me do more mediocre. 3% return. It's still like a really bad decision. You could make that same return buying bonds. So now, if markets are going to go down a lot, this isn't such a bad idea because you could have negative returns for some period of time. That has happened many times. So anyway, I just want you guys to sort of see the way I look sometimes at conceptualizing what is an equity. We haven't talked about that in a while. Like why would I buy this? What am I buying? And I'm buying, a share of a company for 19 times earnings that, is going to grow earnings pretty well. And in 4 or 5 years, probably could give me a good return, but what am I foregoing by investing in other things? So sort of a basic finance lesson, but a little bit more, applied to stocks in particular. I'm definitely going to get a lot of actually. Capper. The capper. Cappy. Okay, I'm going to call back my buddy